Hi, I'm Gail.
And hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast, now in its sixth year. Visit womenover70.com and learn about all our offerings and ways to become involved. Consider visiting or joining Aging Reimagined Circle, and as a member, enjoy free participation in our monthly online programs. We want to thank our sponsor, Skintensive. As skin ages, it becomes more fragile and bruises easily, especially on the back of your hands or forearms. I'm loving Skintensive Bruise Cream, developed by Harvard-trained dermatologists specifically for mature skin. It gently moisturizes and helps bruises fade faster. Find it at skintensive.com. For 25% off, use the code capital W, capital O, 70. That stands for Women Over 70.
And today we're pleased to have author and advocate for women aging, Nicole J. Smith, who knows all too well how caring for a parent with dementia can upend your life. Her book, Diagnosis Dementia, Your Guide for Eldercare Planning and Crisis Management, recounts her story, how she was blindsided by her mother's post-pandemic mental decline and eventual official diagnosis of Alzheimer's. As the denial and drama escalated, Nicole and her Aunt Nancy created a transcontinental plan to find their loved one a safe, secure senior residence. From a daughter's point of view, Nicole tells their story of shock, research, worry, discovery, and ultimate success. And she also shares information and tips to help others find their way through one of life's most difficult passages. So, Nicole, welcome to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined. Thank you for providing all of us with this important book. I read it from cover to cover, and I really felt that it imparted so much for others who are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's.
And thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. In fact, it reads more like a novel, and yet your interpretation of the facts as they occurred offer a chilling recount of the enormity of dealing with dementia of a loved one. And so, how did you decide on the format for the book?
Well, I am a book person. I do a lot of reading. For about 15 years, I was a volunteer for a global literacy organization. And I was actually in the process of writing another book about the value of volunteerism, because I come from a long line of volunteers in my family. And then I couldn't really find the book that I wanted to help me figure this out. I mean, of course, there's books out there. You've got, what's it called? 36-Hour Day and, some other books. But I found mostly there were books that were memoirs that talked about relationships and how to interact with people with dementia. But I just didn't feel like there was a book that was a resource manual for people like me in the sandwich generation and having issues with the kids and the parents and the distance. So I have 3 different parents in different states and kids in different states. And it just added a level of complexity to the issues I was dealing with. And so as I was going through this, I was looking for resources, websites, movies, podcasts, books. And as I came across different resources that I found helpful, I started cataloging them and making a list. And then, of course, as I was going through this, I was writing. It was kind of a cathartic process to kind of process all of this. And then I ended up with 80,000 words. So
let's go back to the beginning a little bit.
Okay.
So how did your mother's dementia actually reveal itself? And when did you realize how serious it was?
She lived in Los Angeles and I lived in New Jersey. And we've always been a close family, but we only see each other a couple of times a year with the kids and work and different things. So in hindsight, she started having issues, I think in 2017, 2018, where she would say things or do things and we just would say, oh, that's weird. And I just chalk them up to that's weird moments. And I didn't know anything about dementia. I didn't really necessarily associate it with aging per se. I mean, she was early 70s and I didn't know what was normal aging, what wasn't normal aging, but it was just like, oh, that's weird that mom did that or said that. And then in hindsight, so it was a gradual process leading up to what eventually was more serious, seeing the doctor and getting the diagnosis. And that was kind of driven by my Aunt Nancy, who is her older sister and a nurse, but she was also living in Maryland on the other side of this country. But she started to facilitate more of the diagnosis that we ultimately got.
Mhm. Wow.
And how did your mother respond to the diagnosis?
Well, she was in denial, which is common for dementia, to be paranoid, denial, not cooperating. And it wasn't necessarily the dementia. Well, there was a couple things going on. So she lived in this wonderful, beautiful, amazing house in Los Angeles that she lived in for 20 years. But because she had sold her business and was now on Social Security and didn't really have a pension to rely on. And my stepdad had passed. And so she was running out of money. And we knew this. And she didn't want to believe it and refused to believe it and was dipping into her savings. And so part of it was I didn't understand, well, no, you ran a couple of different businesses. How can you not understand these numbers? And what I realized later is that's part of dementia. You just deny what you don't want to believe. And in her mind, she was a gazillionaire. And so we were saying, you have to move. You have to move either to senior living or independent living or somewhere else. You need to make a plan. And she was having none of it. She loved her house. It was her fortress, her sanctuary. And so she wasn't moving no matter what. And so then that snowballed into the other things. Oh my gosh, this is dementia and this is serious and we need to think about what our options are. And so it kind of snowballed in from there.
I was interested in all of the financial issues that you talked about in the book, and everyone's financial status is different, but left unmanaged, dementia can really take its toll and be life threatening, of course, and be like what you found with your mother, life in terms of finance, very difficult. And so you devoted quite a chapter to that on legal and financial documents that we need. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I like to say I am not a lawyer. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a social worker, but I've definitely figured out all of those terms. I talk about it as learning new languages simultaneously under duress because everybody's got their acronyms and their terminology. So what I always tell people from what I know now is make sure you have your powers of attorney for financial and medical for yourself, your parents, and your kids over 18, because that is like the starting point into having some control. And there's caveats to all that, but that is like the number one entree into this world and giving you a little bit of control. And it also can drive those discussions that we need to have about aging and what decisions need to be made. And there's also now mental health powers of attorney in certain states that you can look into. So my mother had her will, her trust, her powers of attorney. She had all of that done and signed, sealed, and delivered. But the caveat is that she had to be declared incapacitated by two separate doctors in order for us to take control as trustees. And that was difficult because doctors and lawyers don't really mix. And the doctors, even though we had the diagnosis from the neurologist and agreement from the primary care physician, they didn't want to write the letters that went to legal to allow us to have control. It took us 8 months to get those. 8 months. And my aunt, being a nurse for half a century, was in the portals, talking to them, working with them, and they trusted her. It still took 8 months. So that was a challenge. The other thing I didn't understand that I understand now is that my elder law attorney was pushing for us to do conservatorship, which is a whole very expensive way to get control of the finances, which we had control of once we got those letters. But I didn't know about that guardianship was separate, which is control over the person. So even though we had all the trust and everything and the letters finally, we could not by law force her to leave her house. That requires a court order and a guardianship and takes lawyers and time and we were running out of time. So it was a nightmare. And so what ended up happening is the other option we discovered is we could take her to the ER, and if the ER admitted her for mental breakdown, dementia, whatever, then they would take her. But she ended up flying to Maryland, leaving in the middle of the night. We tracked her down. There were police, security guards, everything involved. Then I took her to ER in New Jersey. Then she ended up in the hospital, and then behavioral health, and then memory care. So it is a very long story. I had 3 states involved. And I mean, you can't make this up.
You were lucky you found her.
Yeah. And luckily even though we had the documents, she would go in her office and lock things and hide things and change things. And so we would trying to take pictures of passwords and stuff. So we found her because we had the tracking on her phone, but she turned her phone off. But luckily I was able to dial into the credit card company and use the password that I'd stolen to figure out where she had charged, and found out she booked a flight. And it's a long story, but luckily, yes, we found her. And through a series of doctors and blips and tricks and travels, she ended up in memory care in a good place.
And all of that sounds, when you talk about finances, sounds really expensive.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate that my husband was recently retired, so he could hang out with my 5 kids because I had 5 kids all through this. And I could start flying across the country. I could afford the flights. I could afford taking care of certain things. And then the other thing is that she couldn't afford to stay in her house. But when she sold her house, it had quadrupled in value in 20 years, California real estate. And so when she sold her house, now she has plenty of money for her care, which is $9,000 a month in memory care. And the latest statistic that I looked up is that the average cost of memory care for a person with dementia, or cost of caring for someone with dementia, is over $400,000 through the end of their lifetime. And we're well on our way to that. And she could live another 10 years because she's physically really healthy.
Yeah, right. I just want to go back to the forms you were talking about for a moment. I noticed in the book a form called POLST, EOLST. That's not one I've ever heard of or seen. Can you just tell us what that is?
Correct. And I think they've been around for about 10 years, and the acronym may change depending on what state you're in. Sometimes it's with an M. It's the Physician's Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. Or sometimes it's a medical order for life-sustaining treatment. And so what that is it's so some of these are legal forms and some of these are physician forms. So it's a physician form that you fill out with your physician to say, I don't want intubation. I don't want resuscitation. I don't want this. I don't want this. I do want this. So it's a little bit different in every state, but I think there's also a national registry, but it's a form that gets into the nitty gritty about what you want and you don't want done to your person in an emergency situation. And you have to keep it on your fridge, on your door, on your person, in your car. Like I think they have cards too. So it's like another step that you can take to make your wishes known.
And that's different from DNR.
I think that, again, it depends on the state, and I'm not a doctor, but I think it has like different sections on there for do not resuscitate, do not intubate, do not feeding tubes. And so I would say discuss it with your physician in your state, and then also ask them, where do I keep this? Because if you're at home and you fall, and you collapse or whatever, the EMTs are going to rush in and save you unless you're throwing this form in their face, right? So, because their job is to show up, resuscitate, do their job without any kind of questions or interruptions, unless you intervene or someone who's with you or your medical advocate. It's complicated, but again, a lot of these forms facilitate these discussions with your physician, with your family, with your loved one, because Otherwise, people are left guessing, what does mom want? What does dad want? We're in a crisis situation. We don't have time. We can't ask them. And that's where all these forms come in. And the bigger picture is driving the conversation about death, dying, end of life, which none of us want to discuss because it's not very pleasant, but it's a fact of life and death.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so what I gathered from reading the book and from talking with you, of course, your mother was able to appear completely normal when she sensed it was to her benefit to do so. And
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. And
that is also very common in dementia that I've learned, or in cognitive change, because I guess someone recently said it's like a different part of the brain that can kind of I don't know if it's adrenaline or something that kind of you can rise to the occasion when you know you're being evaluated and seem perfectly normal and together. And the dementia isn't an on-off switch. It's like different things firing in the brain and the brain working together. And that was clearly evident when she was with the neurologist. She was pulling it together. And then the funny thing is, so when she ended up in the emergency room, admitted in New Jersey, and the psychiatrist that went to evaluate her at the hospital, they called me and they said, well, she's fine. Why is she here? She's fine. I'm like, oh. So then I had to fax the letters from the doctors again and give them the history. And because then she had worked in healthcare. So she's throwing HIPAA around and demanding things and, calling the shots. And she's a force, right? Like, saying all the right things to get people scared that she's going to sue them or report them. And, she's very feisty. So it was such a challenge. And that's somewhat common. Like they can feel like, oh, they're fine.
Are you concerned at all about your own potential for dementia?
Well, yes and no. So I, again, I'm not a physician, but I follow all the research, and now there's biomarkers you can get tested. So I have not been tested for the APOE4 gene. I've not been tested for anything. I don't know if my mother has it. So my mother's older sister has vascular dementia, which is a different kind. My mother has Alzheimer's. My stepmother has aphasia, and then, which she's not related, of course. And then my aunt, who's the nurse, who is 84, is absolutely fine cognitively, physically, everything. She is a dynamo, volunteering, traveling, crazy, wonderful. So I don't know. And my dad had normal pressure hydrocephalus, which is a fluid on the brain, and there's different kinds. And he had the shunt surgery, and he's absolutely fine now, which is amazing. Another amazing story. But okay, so back to the question. Well, I, from the research that I follow, they are saying lifestyle plays a huge factor in whether you develop dementia or not. And that's what some of the current science says. So I work out regularly. I always have exercises, my mental and physical release. I cook a lot of my own food. I read a lot. I have a social network that I enjoy. But as I tell my kids, you can do everything right and buy the book and still get hit by a bus or get cancer or get dementia. So there's no guarantees in life. So I take care of myself the best I can with what I know and what I do, and just hope for the best. So, but women are twice as likely to develop dementia than men.
And what is the research behind that, or what explanation for that?
I don't know the reasoning, but they say, because first they said, well, women live longer. And the other fact that I know is age is the biggest risk factor for dementia. So when you're 65, you have about a 10% chance of having dementia. When you get to 75, it jumps to like, I think, 13 or 30. Yeah. And then, but people in their mid 80s, 1 in 3 have dementia, some kind of dementia. And there's like 100 different kinds, but about 9 common types. Like if you heard of Parkinson's or frontotemporal, Lewy body, vascular dementia, Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is the most common. And then mixed dementia. So you can have a couple different ones going on too. So, but anyway, so yeah, so age is the biggest risk factor. Yes, that.
Amazing. Wow. Yes, something more for me to think about as I
Well,
with you on my job. Right.
Well, we were at a graduation this weekend and we were with one of the aunts, and she's about to turn 100, and she is like sharp as all get out and amazing. And then one of the other grandpas was 90, and he's just, walking around campus and talking about his life in the service all over the world. I mean, yeah, you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. In the book, I noted in many places that you talk a lot about record keeping and how important that was and how it served you. Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a chronological person, and I was just record keeping from just tracking your health history, and then also I was bombarded with trying to figure out, okay, where's the taxes, how do I get into our Social Security, how do I figure out this or that, or the more like how much is she on the mortgage. I don't know if is that the kind of records you're talking about.
Well, everything that you did in order to manage your mother's situation.
Yeah, well, it was it was back and forth. So I would fly out and my aunt would fly out, and we would kind of take turns because we would get these frantic calls from my mother, and she was alone in her house, and she would be like, I'm going to take a bottle of pills, I'm going to drive my car off a cliff, I'm going to kill myself, and she was panicking. And then, one of us would fly in, and we would be there for less than 24 hours. And then she's like, you know what? I think I'm fine. I'm going to stay in my house. I don't really need your help. Can you please leave? And so it's just like, ugh. And then, so every time we were there, if she was like sleeping or downstairs or whatever, I'd sneak into her office and like try and take pictures of her password sheet, and then trying to get current copies of the trust and the power of attorney. Like my aunt had done all this with her, but then she would get mad at somebody and then change all the names and send it to her attorney, and have it redone, and then pay $1,000, and then 3 weeks later do it again. And then I happened to be there one time when a new, FedEx package came with her revised will requiring signatures, and she grabbed it and wouldn't let me see it. So then when she was distracted, I took it and hid it under the mattress. I mean, it's a constant game of trying to just. And she was my mother. Like, I felt weird about, like, I'm disobeying my mother. I'm lying to my mother. I'm sneaking around by my mother. But I mean, I knew it was for over her own good, but I still had the little girl in me going, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble. Oh, it's like
The documentation also of just every single interaction you have with the medical or legal person, which you found out when you had to produce some documents all over again.
Right. No, I had to be organized, right? And have and I still wasn't completely organized because I was like, okay, what did I get from that trip, and where's that folder? And then when we went through when she was in the behavioral health, and then I had to fly back and in 2 weeks empty out the entire house for sale. And she had my grandma's records and her records and and I was just trying, is there anything valuable here? Is there anything I need to, she was kind of organized, and she had her files and her folders, but just making sure we had all the right. And then I had to open once I did have control, I had to open a new bank account in the name of the trust and get the checks for the trust and start writing the checks and get the house ready for sale. And then, like, luckily I'm married to a CPA, so he took care of all the taxes. And then we had Social Security, but then I had to figure out what Medicare to put her on because she had done different things with Medicare. And then moving from California to Maryland to Arizona, different Medicare program. I mean, it never ends. It never ends, literally.
Yeah. Where is she now?
So we left New Jersey because we were planning to retire in Arizona. So we moved to Tucson, Arizona a couple years ago. And 6 months after that, I moved her from memory care in Maryland, where she was near my aunt, to Tucson. So she's now near me in the memory care, and I see her about 3 or 4 times a week. And she just had her 80th birthday a few months ago. And yeah, but when she was in Maryland, I would drive the 3 hours back and forth each way to New Jersey, or from New Jersey to Maryland, to visit her where she was with my aunt, to kind of take a load off my aunt, which was fine. But we got really close because of all this, because my aunt was really my rock and still is through this entire ordeal.
Are you an only child?
No. Oh my gosh. So I am the oldest of three, and then my parents divorced when I was young, and my mom married a man who had 6 children. So I have a bunch of stepsisters that are all older, but that was another thing that was challenging because my sister lived 15 minutes from my mother in LA, but she was having nothing to do with any of this. Like she made it a lot worse, or she was like, well, you do it, but you're doing it wrong, and you're doing this and you should do this. I was like, well, if you're not going to help, then step aside. So I didn't speak to her for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, but the stepsisters were helpful because both of their parents had passed and they have known my mom forever. And so, I mean, it's, family dynamics is a whole other aspect to this. And then my brother hasn't really been in touch for 20 years or so because he married a woman that my mother didn't like. So that relationship has been, or was already strained. So yeah, so it's, yeah, I'm not alone, but that's what I think. I got my aunt, got my husband, I've got elder law attorneys I hired in 3 states, and then whatever help I can get through. I mean, but I ask for help. I'm a good communicator and delegator, and that's how I've been able to navigate this.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Key message.
Well, I mean, you got to go to your strengths. Like I said, I'm not degreed in any of these things, but I know how to find people and ask and listen and use their expertise to get what I need done.
Mm-hmm. And weren't you recently certified as a senior advisor?
Yeah. So a certified senior advisor is they're based in Denver, but it's a class that you take that covers everything elder care. They're called specialists in aging, or we're called specialists in aging. So I got, they sent me a box of books. So I had to read all these books, like manuals. And then I went to a 3-day class, and you could do it online or in person. I did it in person. And then I took an exam, like a 2-hour exam. And they cover everything related to seniors. So housing, moving, Medicare, Medicaid, taxes, dementia, longevity, statistics, research. So it's everything that I've been doing for the last 5 years, but I still learned a lot. And then you have to do continuing education to keep your advisor designation. And so I'm already doing that. Because and then they're having a conference in the DC area in August. So I'm going to that. They have a conference every year.
Mm-hmm. Do you intend to do anything more with this, or is it simply to enlighten yourself to be able to help your mother in the best way?
Well, both. Well, I'm also helping my father and my stepmother. My father just moved my stepmother into memory care in Iowa. So I'm navigating. I mean, he's doing a great job, but I'm kind of, again, listening and his support. And the other thing that came up out of this was he had nothing done in the terms of legal documents, no will, no trust, and that was a whole other couple chapters in the book about that. But I wanted to have something to designate that I know my stuff, and also I'm a huge networker. There's a lot of activity in this elder care space with every people trying to use AI and technology and services and all kinds of stuff. So I continue to go to conferences. I'm going to a think tank conference in Austin in December. So it's partly just to enhance my knowledge and also to network with everybody else in the elder aging space.
Wow, you're a great role model.
I was going to say, Gail and I recently attended the American Society on Aging conference. Are you connected with that organization?
No, but I mean, send it over. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, between Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, like one pops up all the time. So I tend to go to the ones that are in Phoenix or Tucson, or I go to 1 or 2 conferences a year, but anyone that you think is good, let me know. And and I usually kind of combine travel, a conference visit with family and work it out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of all depressed with how many sessions dealt with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Really?
Many of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have a lot to offer there.
Yes. Well, you're a terrific role model. We wish you so much good luck in continuing your journey in this area. And let me show your book for you. Diagnosis Dementia. And it's well worth reading, everybody. And we just wish you lots and lots of good luck, Nicole, with this job.
I thank the opportunity to chat with you all, and like I like you mentioned, and the book was designed to be a story, a narrative, like our narrative, and also a resource manual, and it's divided into sections, and it's small, so you can put it in your purse. If you're at the doctor's office and you don't know what to ask, what to do, if you've got a call with your elder law attorney, you don't know what to ask or what to do, if you just have basic questions about dementia. So I tried to break it down into the legal, the medical, the financial, the caregiving, the practical, and then intersperse it with all of the juicy details of our journey. It's still ongoing.
Lot in here, yes, lots and lots of sections and so much good information. So again, we thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And listeners, because of your loyalty, our numbers continue to grow. Still, we'd like to see more of you at our monthly online programs. So join Aging Reimagined Circle and participate for no charge. And make your voice heard as together we change the conversation about women aging. And if you like this podcast, we also want to recommend Boomer Banter, Real Talk About Aging Well, with host Wendy Green. Takes you on a journey to explore how to live vibrantly and healthfully with strong relationships and purpose as we age. So Wendy believes that aging well requires preparation and vision. She covers topics around financial literacy, mental and physical health, relationships, and purpose. So thank you for listening.